Welcome to On the Chain. This is Chip here going solo. Jeff is at a work event today, so he will not be joining us, but he will be back here in the seat in the OTC studio tomorrow night. Ripple Swell 2025 at New York City wrap up. I can tell you there was massive energy in New York City this week for a lot of different reasons. The Ripple Swell 2025 conference delivered big announcements, powerful panels, major momentum for XRP and also RLUSD. I was there to take it and soak it all in, from global partnerships to tech innovation. We'll break down everything that matters. Unlocking real-world asset liquidity across blockchains, huge step towards the multi-chain interoperability, because buckle up, the Canary XRP ETF, known as the XRPC, it's on the horizon. This could be a major game changer for XRP exposure in traditional finance. Geopolitical power plays, tensions are rising. There's a huge call to terminate the filibuster, and it's starting to gain a little bit of traction with ripple effects across U.S. politics. The world is watching. We'll break it down, what it means for policy, markets, global stability, all this and more as we dive headfirst into the shallow end for maximum impact on the chain. Let's go.
Welcome to On the Chain.
Welcome everybody to On the Chain. Welcome. I just came back from New York City on Thursday, and I was there up there Monday through Wednesday. And of course, you can see I got the snazzy hat at the XRP community event. It was open to anybody who registered. Obviously, they capped it, but it was quite the event as well. But I enjoyed meeting a lot of amazing people that we've seen on X over the years, tuned into their spaces, watched their videos. So it was a big thrill. I mean, James Rule, I met him in person. We've been talking and friends for at least 6-7 years. And so to finally meet and hang out with him was what a pleasure that was. So drop where you're coming in from, guys. Drop it in there. I see the chat is always in from Celebration. What's going on? XRP Plumbing in the house. Hoping everyone's having a great weekend so far. Gotta love that. But I'll get to breaking down some of that other stuff as well. But it was a very fantastic weekend, I have to say, on a lot of different fronts. So, and we'll get to it in a little bit. We'll start breaking some of the things down. But where is everybody? Where the heck is everybody? No one got the announcement. Yeah, it's funny because I rarely ever get the announcement that we're live. That's the way it goes sometimes. However, so Monday kicked off Swell with a sort of a pre-party. That was a lot of fun. People kind of trickled in. It was on the I think the upper floor of one of the buildings in Hudson Yards there. Beautiful view. Just a fantastic evening. Some hors d'oeuvres and lots of great conversations. I had a chance to meet Monica Long and have a short little conversation with her. Asked her a couple questions. Obviously, she wasn't in a position to really announce anything, but she said as soon as, because I really asked about the banking license and if there was going to be, if they were getting close, she said, as soon as we know, you'll know really pretty fast. So there was no update to share there, but it was a pleasure meeting her in person. Of course, I saw Stu Alderati floating around, and just a lot of great people from Ripple that you've seen. It's great to see them in person. David Schwartz was pretty much everywhere all the time. I didn't really get a chance to chat with David too much, but I had chatted with him in the past, but he was really super friendly, really approachable, and I was usually in conversations, or he was in a conversation with somebody. I met Ellie Tarrant briefly. She was working on a story, but I just went over and introduced myself. So she said there'd be time later. I never saw her again, but that's how it works, right? So she was doing a lot of the press stuff. There was a press area that was kind of secluded that was at the event, so it was kind of off the beaten path, which was kind of interesting and nice. And that's where they had the good coffee back there. So once I discovered that, and there's also some meeting spaces and meeting rooms, there was also sort of a history of I would say blockchain, crypto in general. It was a nice little history. I'll probably play that video tomorrow night. I just took a video of it, but everything start with the kickoff of Bitcoin all the way up to where we are now, which was great. I did have a nice chance to chat with Ashish Burla, and I believe he will be coming on the podcast, so that's good. He said he would come on here, super friendly, talked a little bit about Evernorth. He was on stage. He happened to be he did an excellent job as the MC. I thought he did fantastic. It's not an easy gig to go MC something with the size and scale that's being live streamed as Ripple. And I thought Ashish did an amazing job. When Jeff's back tomorrow night, I did get some clarity on the shirt. I've shown the shirt in the past, the merch, and I had asked him about it. I showed him the picture. We had a good laugh about it, and we'll talk a little bit about. We'll break that down tomorrow night when Jeff is back. That was really fantastic. Oh yeah, of course we are shadow banned, 100%, 1,000%. We know it for sure, for a fact. Nobody, and people have been telling us that they've been unsubscribed, that come back in here and said, I haven't seen your videos in the longest time, and I went to go see, looked you up, and yeah, sure enough, we were not, we were unsubscribed. So they had to resubscribe again. A lot of weird stuff, and I tell you, we lose a lot of visitors. We a lot of people that had subscribed in the past. They just unsubscribe people. It's not too uncommon. It used to happen a lot on X before, Twitter before Elon Musk bought it. But there's a lot of anomalies. Also, there's a lot of great creators that are getting hit with strikes, like your content's dangerous, and all they're doing is talking about the news or what's happening in crypto. So I suspect it might be some AI they're using. It's gone a little bit awry or faulty. That could be part of what's happening. Good morning, OTC Crew, says Visual Vendetta. Good to see that. Definitely something on the weird side going all around. I got an Android phone, an iPhone, and doing your own investigations. Yeah, it's funny because we've had some people come in here that have not, that have complained, saying that they didn't actually see the announcements, and it turns out they were unsubscribed. So, and it's funny because we lose as many people as we gain, we lose more people. So it offsets it. So we might gain like 15 on a show, we'll lose 13. So you get plus 2. Other times we'll lose 10, we'll subscribe 9, so it's like it basically cancels that out. And it's been going on for about 3 years. And we know exactly when it happened. We can trigger it back to when we started doing geopolitical stuff. So there's some kind of legacy code going on, regardless of what you hear, that, oh no, we don't let people talk about free speech. They don't. And there's nothing really you could do about it. I know a lot of channels grow. They just talk about XRP or crypto or Bitcoin or whatever. We happen to filter in some geopolitical stuff, and that's sort of the way it goes. Tuesday was day 1 of Swell. A lot of great conversations. The one that I really particularly loved was Stu Alderati interviewed Rep Richie Torres. I got to tell you, that was just absolutely fantastic. It was really engaging. Stu did a fantastic job on that. He really broke everything down really well. But Richie was just so upbeat. Richie Torres is a Democrat, but the way he was speaking, I almost thought, like, is that a Republican up on stage? The way he talked about freedom, the way he talked and position stuff sounded very different from a lot of the party line that you generally hear about when it comes to policy and Democrats. But he was really great. Unfortunately, when he came in, I wanted to go up and chat with him or invite him on the podcast, but I think they ushered him in the back door, kind of in the back door. He was not available. So he came on stage, he left off stage, and I even went outside and went to see if I could find where he was. And I think they just sort of like maybe he got out the back way, but it was a very engaging conversation. Day 2, obviously, Brad Garlinghouse spoke. I thought Monica Long was fantastic in sort of kicking it off. She did a fantastic job with sort of positioning how Swell would go. And then she did an interview with the person that heads up the NASDAQ. And just a lot. It was so many great panels, so much great energy there. It was really a thrill to be there, to be in the audience for those panels, and just to be with a lot of the people. I met so many incredible people. It was very friendly atmosphere. You just go up, introduce yourself. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? That kind of thing. And everybody was just very, very friendly. There was a lot of people that, had come in from Europe, some folks that came in from Korea. It was just a very, very fun atmosphere. And I have to say that I really enjoyed quite a bit. Also, another panel that I connected with was Michael Arrington, had David Schwartz and Ashish Burla up on stage. Oddly enough, that one was not live streamed, probably for a good reason, but Arrington was hilarious. He actually did he probably dropped a couple F-bombs. He's like, am I allowed to say that? And David's like, well, you just said it. So I really connected with that one, just because that could have lasted 3 hours. I would have been there for all 3 hours. It was just so much fun. It was off the cuff. It wasn't really up to trying to take itself too seriously. It was really more all about Ashish talking about Evernorth. and there was some great stuff in there. But one of the questions, and I put this up in my on my X feed, and I don't have it today because there's a lot of stuff to prep for here, and it's always tougher when Jeff's not around. Makes it double duty stuff to do. But one of the questions Arrington asked both David Schwartz and Ashish Burley, he says, "What kind of boss is Brad Garlinghouse? Is he a good boss? Is he an honorable boss?" Of course, that got a lot of laughs from the crowd, and she said, "Well, he's no longer he's no longer my boss. I was on the board, and but yeah, he was a fantastic boss. Had great things to say about him." And David said, "Well, he was only his second favorite boss." And Arrington said, "Well, who's your first favorite boss?" And he said, "Chris Larson, of course." And of course, Brad Garlinghouse is second. But he talked a little bit about Brad joking with him, saying that because David is leaving his position at the end of the year as the chief tech officer at Ripple, he's going to be moving to the board of Ripple. And as a board member, kind of technically, he becomes Garlinghouse's boss. So Garlinghouse was sort of ribbing David a little bit about that. So that was a lot of fun to listen to and break down. And of course, Tuesday night there was a sort of a dinner type of thing. There was it was a Hispanic place, like a place. I had food from Spain. You had margaritas and palomas, and there was a guitar player playing there. They did a little bit of awards. Ripple gave out some awards for some of the participants that were there. That was fun to watch. I also saw John Deaton. John Deaton came up to me, and John looks fantastic. He looks like he's super fit. Dropped a bunch of weight, just like he's a fighting weight. And we had a great conversation. He came up to me and said, "Oh, in the ship, I didn't know if that was you. I was kind of looking. I didn't see the hair." And I was like, "Yeah, I got a haircut, John." So he's like, we had a little chat too. I also got to hang out with Santiago Velez, who, as you guys know, along with Fabio Marzella, are the two directors for the Zaudao. And it was really a lot of fun hanging out with Santiago, somebody that admired him and followed him on X for years. I had the chance to meet Fabio in person last year in Australia and get to know him. He was like the executive director of the XRP event that happened in Australia. But he had a family event that he prevented him from attending. So I was kind of bummed I didn't get a chance to see Fabio again. But hanging out with Santiago, and of course he was there with John Deaton, and I was talking with John Deaton's girlfriend, and it was just she's incredibly knowledgeable and knows what's going on in the world. And it's kind of like you can see why her and John get along so well. There's a lot of high IQ going on there. So that was a pleasure. And just a lot of folks that I met along the way. It was just fantastic. People would come up, they'd introduce themselves, and you say, "Oh, what's your X handle?" "Okay, now I know who you are." Because you don't always put a face with somebody because you don't know who they are. They're anonymous. Not everyone's dumb enough to use their own name right here. Maybe I am dumb enough, but that happens. And I did, I may have, so people would know who I was, but I wouldn't necessarily know who they were. Got to meet Lady K and Stone. They host pretty frequent spaces. It was really great to meet both of them. I saw Blockchain Trucker. I had met him 2 years ago at the Ripple Proper Party. He is just fantastic. He's got that same energy that he has on his videos, and it's just really great. Of course, James Rule wore the ultimate, I would say, jacket. He had an XRP jacket. It was black with the XRP logo all over it. And of course, I was like, "James, I've been trying to find you." He goes, "Come on, Chip, you couldn't find me with my jacket." I'm like, "I'm joking, James. We might as well have a neon flashing light on you." That's how it was. It was pretty good, man. It was. Let's see. Joe Buddy's asking, "Is there overall take that you were hearing from different parties and events?" A lot of it was a lot of what I heard had to do with a lot of the announcements that happened. There was a lot of excitement and conversation in and around XRP, what people are doing. And it was interesting to meet a lot of the people that I did, that why they were there, why they were actually there at the event. I had met a gentleman from Korea who was looking to purchase an exchange on this side of the US. And I was trying to make some connections for him to see if he could maybe accelerate that. So that was a lot of fantastic fun. But I was really honored to be there. It was a real pleasure to be there. Now, the good news is, here's the good news. When Brad Garlinghouse convened or wrapped up I would say like the very last keynote that he did. One of the things he ended with was how important the XRP community is. And he also put out there that next year's event, it's going to be in New York. I think they're going to keep it in New York City. They're going to have to get a bigger venue because as Apex was always really more the developers and sort of the technical side of the house, and Swell was always like more of the business. What they're doing is they're opening up Swell. But before I get to the reason why they're doing what they're doing, Brad said that in 2017, one of the things that happened was they had tried to get into CBOS, which was up in Toronto, and unfortunately, Swift would not allow them to be part of it. So they said, "Well, we'll just do our own event." They called it Swell. They had it in like a warehouse district, and they invited people, and they had their side event. And ultimately, what ended up happening was it diverted a lot of traffic from CBOS because people wanted to go to the Ripple event, and so it kind of backfired on them. And then they started holding this every year, and they'd move it by location. So Brad said what they're going to do now is from here on, starting next year in New York City, the Swell event will happen, and it's open to the XRP community. That means when Jeff and I are there next year, we will see you guys. We will be able to meet you guys in person, and everybody. It's open to everybody to go. So I don't know if they're going to have it at the Jacob Javits Center, a convention center. I don't know. I mean, there were probably around 750 people in attendance, and it seemed pretty I wouldn't say crowded is the wrong word, but it felt bigger than that. When I saw the people, it kind of felt like there were more people than that, but it was a really good crowd. And I also want to thank XRP Plumbing. Thank you very much for the super sticker. Appreciate that, man. Always appreciate it here. Thank you for the support. Also got to meet Zach Rector. What a nice guy that he's such a good guy. And I don't look up to too many people. I'm 6'3", he must be 6'5". I don't look up to many people. He's a good looking kid in person, and tall. And I'll tell you the other thing too is being my height, I don't usually see people taller. And I don't know what's going on in the water up there, but man, there were a lot of people that were taller than me. I saw a couple people that were 6'7", walking around. So there was a lot of that, a lot of height going on. Being in Florida, I always feel like a Yeti walking around amongst the natives. A lot of people tend to be a little bit shorter than me. So seeing a lot of people, talking to a lot of people eye to eye, not looking down, and sometimes looking up. So that was something that was pretty interesting too. I got to meet Johan there. I got to meet Johan there. That was fantastic. And Johan and I were passing out. He did a great job making up these cool t-shirts, which I should have worn. I have one. Thanks for giving me one. And passing out the stickers, talking about the Zaodao. And it was amazing. I was surprised how many people never heard of the Zaodao. We're very excited about it once I started explaining it. I don't know if that was your experience as well, but that was something that also that I really had to funny enough, DAI was not there, and Brad Kimes wasn't there. I kind of expected to see him there. They weren't there this year. Who else was there? I'm trying to think. There was just a bunch of people that I did see. It's kind of hard to recap because there were so many people. Johan knows that. He was there too. He's also he does a lot of volunteer work with the Zaodao. He's doing a great job. Good idea. So it was really fantastic to meet him in person to really sort of break things down. And just a lot of people random people I met along the way. It took a lot of photos. Which maybe I'll share some of that tomorrow night, some of the images and photos that I took, and it's something that I can probably break down. But it was a great event, XRP Community Night, which is where I got this hat from. They gave out this. They gave out what else? This was in the bag. A bag. I don't know. If it was maybe a shirt was in there. Yes, there was an XRP Community shirt. Had a cool XRP logo on the front and sort of this little logo on the side. And then when I was one of the things by attending Swell is you had a choice for 2 gifts. One of them were like mints, like 3 different mints that had, what do you want a mint for? And the other one was a Ripple hat, which is cool. But one of the guys that I was there with that I know, he likes to remain anonymous, but he's here in from the UK. And I was with him, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to check my coat. You want me to just check it with my coat if you don't have to carry it?" I'm like, "Sure, that makes sense." Well, he had to leave early. So he has my hat. So he said he'll post it to me from the UK. So I don't have my Ripple hat, which I was missing. Cool hat too. So it was a lot. It was a lot of it was a lot. Yeah, I did feel short. It's not often that happens, but it does happen. Let's see what else you have here. Maybe Madison Square Garden. That would be interesting too. MSG, sure, why not? Be there next year. Yeah, I'll be forward to look into it. Jeff didn't make it up, so only because he never heard back. But again, next year will be a whole different story. I expect to see a lot of the community there, a ton of the community there, which will be great. Hello from the UK, says the Purple Ferret. There we go. So that was a lot of the breakdown from the event itself. Really, really had a phenomenal time there. I was only about 2-3 minutes away. The first day was kind of cold walking in, and then the next 2 days the weather was fantastic. So it was really, really good. The Ripple events were all fantastically well put together, well planned. I got to meet Reinhard Kate. He does all of their sort of all the videos you ever see that are put together, all the interviews, the Ripple minute and all that stuff. So it's really a pleasure to meet him. I'd always admired his work for a long time, and he's super friendly in person. I was really happy to meet him, and some of the other folks too at Ripple that I had met was really great. So I have to say that. Let's see, but it seemed like it went by pretty fast, and there's only so many people you could talk to and things you could talk about and say. So it was a lot of I don't know. I felt like it went by like that. You'd be in a panel, 2 panels would go by. You go out, get a snack. You go out and get lunch. Start having some conversations. Talk to 6 or 7 or 10 people. It was just fast-paced, exciting time. And after covering it here on the chain Swell for so many years from afar, it was really fantastic to actually be there in person to take it all in. A lot of times I just soaked it in. Like, wow, this is really fantastic. Look at all the cool energy here. Look at all the cool people that are here, people from everywhere, all walks of life, a lot of business, a lot of people looking specifically for something. So I have to say that was really, really fantastic to sort of see it and be there. What's up, Ryan? What's going on? So yeah, Ripple Swell, a huge event, XRP Community Night. Wow, that was loud in there. I almost wish they'd turn the music down a little bit. Like I was talking to Johan, I was like, I could barely, sometimes it was just boom, 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 which I like. I like club atmosphere. But now when I'm trying to have conversations, I kind of wish they'd. And so there were parts where you could kind of travel and go. Then I finally realized that the rooftop bar was pretty cool. Super quiet up there. There was no music up there. But I didn't discover that until right before I was leaving. I actually left a little bit earlier, but I did discover that, and there was a lot of great. I saw Rob Cunningham, hung out with Rob Cunningham, saw him last year up in was up there in Atlanta last year. So I saw some people. There's so many people I ran into that was kind of, they're not coming to mind, but probably Jeff tomorrow, I'll remember some more people. But it was really a fantastic event. And I want to sort of break down some of the things here that did happen, in fact. So one of the big announcements, this was made day one. So when Brad, Monica had one interview with the NASDAQ person that runs up NASDAQ. And then Brad came on, he talked a little bit about this huge deal. I mean, this is fantastic when you think about it. Ripple announced, he goes, I just want to make an announcement. It's just a small announcement. It's not really a small announcement. I think it's huge. The fact that Ripple closed a $500 million strategic investment. And what's interesting about it, it's a $40 billion valuation. Now, if you remember the last investment that they closed, it was at a $15 billion valuation. Now, what's changed? Well, in the 2 years, you saw G Treasury, you saw, what is now, what do they call it now? Ripple Prime. There's a lot. They closed on a lot of stuff. There was another little acquisition, Palisades, they acquired. So all of this investment that they had and acquisitions they had over the last couple of years, they jumped from a $15 billion valuation all the way up to a $40 billion valuation. So, the way you look at that $500 million investment, it's based on the company being worth 40 billion. That's right, 40 billion with a B. And one of the things that was evident to me is, and just listening to the panels and what people are up to, is how important a company Ripple is really starting to be. I mean, not that they never were, but this, having the prime brokerage, having the treasury, having the custody, looking to secure a banking license. It's not retail banking. It's institutional, they'll have pretty much every piece that they really need all together. So 95 billion in total Ripple payments volume, 1 billion in RLUSD stablecoin market cap. You think about that, it was only introduced last December. So you're talking maybe 10 months ago, 11 months ago that it was introduced. It didn't, that they talked about it coming out. Now they hit $1 billion RLUSD stablecoin. I would probably imagine that by next year, at the rate they're going, we could easily see anywhere from 3 to 5 billion or higher, just because there's some momentum there. And a lot of what I heard at the conference, based on what was happening with RLUSD2, leads me to believe that that's going to probably 2, 3, 4x easily. Then there's 6 strategic acquisitions we talked about in under 2 years. And another reason why they're 40 billion valuation, 25% of the shares were repurchased, which is another big thing. So Ripple owns a bigger part of the pie. 3x growth in Ripple Prime business. Of course, you think about the Ripple Prime business, that's just since the acquisition. And, obviously it takes a while. I think it completed last week or the week before when they officially renamed it to Ripple Prime, right? So that was formerly known as Hidden Road. But if they're talking about 3x growth in a period of 6 months, pretty amazing. Now, what's great about what Ripple is up to is that when they have somebody using their custody, there's a lot of cross-pollination going on. So someone needs the brokerage services, and somebody that's using custody might also need, any one of their services. So that's why I can see a lot of the growth probably came internally, just because other customers, a one-stop shop, you can get it all from Ripple. They're already using Ripple. It's a lot easier to do that. And not to mention there's 75 regulatory licenses globally. So that all sort of played into, what they're up to and what Ripple's been doing. You go here over to the chat here and take a look. What's that? Since ship that saw the sweet lights. I don't know what that means, but okay. I don't know what that means. XRP plumbing, Lester Heard. Okay, so they're talking about something going on there. Something is going on there. Let's see. Ryan saying each strategic piece brings Ripple up to the next level. What's up, XRP Army? Each acquisition was a different part of the equation. Love this stuff. Yeah, really good stuff, man. Fantastic. Alex Heat in the building. Yeah, what's going on, Mama Lacey? It has been a long time. Hey, just out of curiosity, how did you come to this? Did you you saw us on X? Because I'm curious if you're still subscribed on YouTube, because a lot of people that haven't seen us in a while. They're like, hey, I was unsubscribed, or I don't get the alerts, or something along those lines. So it's good to see you back in the house. To see you're coming in on X, so you see it on X. And it's funny, the viewership on X is three times what we have, and it's even higher on the audio podcast. The audio podcast dwarfs everything. So interestingly enough, more people would rather listen to us. We show a lot of visual content too, but if you're in your car, you're traveling, you're commuting, it's a great thing to put on. You can kind of catch up and listen there. The podcast is available anywhere you normally listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple or Google or any of the other platforms. So I'm really hoping that Elon Musk comes out with something. I think he could do a killer job by making a YouTube sort of equivalent. It could actually live on X. Could be part of X. You could have a place where, similar to YouTube, where all of your content stays. So I'm hoping he does something like that. I'm hoping for sure. And then if we look here, Monica Long, and again, she's also very tall. I will tell you, in person, she's pretty tall. I don't know how tall she is, but that was the other thing that I noticed too. I always thought she looked pretty tall, but she's just a delight in person. She's got this amazing sort of energy about her. And she, and I'll tell you, like, for example, I was at this at the sort of the kickoff sort of event, little party, little, some hors d'oeuvres and drinks and, conversation. And she walked in the room and you just knew she was in the room. It's just like she had that sort of personality. When she popped in the room, you could kind of just feel her before you saw her. You just, like, she lit up the room. So she's got some amazing energy in person. And I was lucky to have enough, just a short little chat with her, a couple little questions here and there. But just, you don't want to, these people are busy and important. They don't have time to be talking to some podcasting guy. So you keep the conversation short. You're not trying to, a lot of people want to have a conversation and meet. But I'll tell you what I saw, that what I was impressed with everybody from Ripple is they always were very excited to talk to people. They didn't, there's no attitude. They were like always excited to meet people. I saw that. I was standing next to Monica. I was talking to a couple other people, and she's treated everybody just the same sort of energy with everyone. And I thought that was pretty cool too. Saw the same with Stu Alderati, who was walking around. David Schwartz obviously was very popular. Brad in and out here and there, probably popping between meetings. I really didn't see much of Monica after that, but I did kind of have a nice conversation with Ashish Burla, and we'll break some of that conversation down tomorrow nights. But let's get into this here. Monica's recapping the announcements at Swell. Talked about the $500 million $1 million investment in Ripple, Fortress, Citadel, Pantera, Galaxy, Brevin Howard, and Marshall Weiss. Clear validation of how far we've come. 100% agree with that. Also announced collaborating with MasterCard, WebBank, and Gemini to use the Ripple USD on the XRP ledger to settle fiat credit card transactions on chain. This is going to mark one of the very first instances of a regulated U.S. bank settling traditional card transactions using a regulated stablecoin on a public blockchain. Huge news there. Also, a full circle moment for Ripple on Monday, welcoming back Palisade co-founders. That would be Dave Mathan, and also that would be, who is that? Tom Kittle. Tom Kittle to the team. Let's see. There we go. Palisade has built a strong, scalable infrastructure that directly complements Ripple custody and payments with wallet as a service offerings. And a lot of people thought, well, this wallet as a service, but the wallet is more for institutional. It's not really from what I had heard about Palisade. So Palisade was another acquisition. Then also RLUSD crossed the 1 billion cap mark. We talked a little bit about that in an earlier announcement. So it was just a plethora of just different cool news going on. Really just amazing. Monica will get those views up. Yeah, she was really fantastic. Loved her energy. Really great. Another cool thing that happened during the conference was this news right here out of Ripple X, which was 100 million ledgers closed. You're talking over a decade of operation. Value settles in seconds on to the next 100 million. So they had this cool little graphic right there. That was something. David Schwartz, actually, I have a video of him. I'll probably play that tomorrow night too, where and of course, he did make an appearance. We were live streaming. I was live streaming from the XRP event, and he walked by, and I'm like, David, say hello, and he sort of waving to the camera as he got on the elevator to head up to the rooftop bar, which was pretty cool. And let's see what else we have here. What else do we have here in the grab bag? Yeah, so there's CoinDesk was there as well, doing a lot of press on there. This Ripple partner with MasterCard, WebBank, and Gemini. They reported a little bit on that. And then this was another thing too. And again, Jeff and I have been talking about this for a long time. There's no reason for Ripple to really IPO. At some point, will they? Yeah, there's a good possibility. It might be one of the biggest IPOs ever. But generally, unless you're looking to raise money, which Ripple does not looking to raise money, with all these acquisitions, if you study the acquisition close enough, you would know what the value of each company was. A lot of times it's 2.5 times the EBITDA. It's not always the case. It can be a 15x. It really depends, but there's a value there that and there's also which that company makes each month or on an annual basis. Monica Long told Bloomberg at Ripple Swell conference the firm has no immediate timeline to go public, and why would it? After that whole being dragged through the mud with the SEC, why would you volunteer to now have to go before the SEC, have a whole team that does regulatory compliance and just does reporting only for the SEC? You have to put your quarterly reports out. You got to put your 10K out every year. I don't know why you'd want to do that. Or you can remain a private company that owns a lot of the shares, that is very strong and has a lot of liquidity. As you've seen with the acquisitions, the last couple were 1.2, 1.3, 1.1 billion dollars. They're spent, I think close to $4 billion in acquisitions. This is something that clearly Ripple doesn't need to do. Something we've talked a lot about here. I know a lot of people were in the link to, and they were buying stuff, the pre-IPO, and who knows? I still think at some point it will go, but I don't know exactly how that will shake out. It's not that I don't get jokes, it's just that I am tired. I will tell you that. I will tell you that. But when you're trying to do this and read this and do the other thing, there's a chance that you're not going to get it. And there's lots of more stuff you have to do when Jeff's not here. I love when Jeff just goes on a rant. I can just sit there and chill and enjoy it like you guys can. Where if I'm trying to carry things and know what's going on, and unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to prepare because I did get back Thursday, and then there was a lot of running around. Yesterday was running around day, so it was a lot more difficult to put the show together, which is why I'm not 100% prepared. But I want to show some of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see, guys. Let me know. I also have this here. I want to see if, because I wasn't able to download all the videos. Sometimes when you share a screen, this should work. Let's see if it does. I'm going to see if you guys can hear the audio on this when I share this. Let me see here. I'm going to share some of this. Let's go full screen. And let me see if you can hear this. Let me know if you guys can, in fact, hear this. So let me know if you can hear that. There's a delay a little bit. Okay, you do hear it. Good. I'm having to listen to it on YouTube too, and there's like a 15-second delay from what I'm saying to what you do. Okay, thank you also for letting me know here. Appreciate that. Let's go ahead and listen to a little bit of this. I wanted to just play a little bit of this. This is one of the first things that happened, but this was a fantastic keynote.
Before we get Swell,
there we go.
Good morning, everybody. Great to be here.
I just missed being on camera. I was sitting like right around here. So there you
go. Day 2 of Swell. Honored to be here with Patrick Witt. Before we get started, well, first of all, I'll say it's fun for me to be the interviewer versus the interviewee. So I just get to sit here and ask questions, which is fun for me.
I'm in the hot seat today.
The hot seat for sure. So before we do that, I just want to take a minute, and this is the 9th Swell, which the very first one that was in Toronto. We have come so far, Department of Defense for a minute, but both in government, but even before that, how did you end up in government?
Yeah, so my background was a college football player, very briefly in the pros with the Saints, and then after that, went to law school, was a hedge fund trader prior to law school, then briefly with Credit Suisse as an M&A banker, came out, went to McKinsey, so I was in the business world and had an opportunity, was approached by a friend that had joined Trump 45, the first term, and asked me to come into government, and so I served for the last year of the Trump admin. After that, ran for public office in 2022 with the president's endorsement, and my former boss.
I didn't know that part. Where did you run?
In Georgia.
In Georgia.
Yeah,
nice.
from Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
And my former boss in the admin, a guy named Mike Regas, who is now the number 3 at the State Department, Deputy Secretary of State for Management and Resources, when things were heating up, getting closer towards the 2024 election, asked me to get back involved if I wanted to rejoin the fight. And so joined the team at AFPI initially, and then we got tapped to be the official transition team. So moved to DC and then down to West Palm Beach, where we ran the transition, and was down there from day one, standing everything up. Very exciting experience, nothing quite like it, running a presidential transition.
I can only imagine.
And my colleague, Michael Friedman, who's actually now the Chief of Staff to Secretary Bessent at the Treasury, we kind of divided up the world, of the different agencies. And so he took the economic portfolio because he had worked on the 2016 transition with Treasury, and I took all the NatSec agencies. So I was managing Department of Defense, Department of State, DOJ, the intelligence community.
We're not going to listen to the whole thing, but I just wanted to put a little bit of that up just so you guys could see, just hear a little bit about the way it kicked off. This was a really good panel. You can go see it on X. Some of it was live streamed. Not all the panels were, but most of them were. So you can actually go back and rewatch them as they happen. They did live stream some of them, like I said. But also there was another one here that I wanted to play a little bit of. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Let me see if I get the right one, and we should be good to know. And you'll just let me know if you don't hear any sound. You'd be like, oh, we just, we don't see anything. There's nothing going on. So we'll see. Let's see here. There we go. We should be good. We should be set. Here we go. This is the fireside chat with Brad Garlinghouse. Scarlett Fu interviewing him from Bloomberg.
This morning I was in your seat.
Oh my gosh.
I was interviewing.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, staying through the day and staying through the event, really.
Finishing strong.
Finishing strong. Brad Garlinghouse here, of course, CEO of Ripple. And given that it's the day after Election Day, there's a lot to reflect on here because I think about how the 2024 election was such a game changer for the crypto industry. Breathed new life. It gave the industry a new lease on life, right?
For sure.
And Mike Novogratz was telling me on Bloomberg Television that the money from the industry swayed the outcome in 2024. I mean, it made a difference, and look at what's happened since. You've got a pro-crypto White House with skin in the game, a pro-crypto SEC. You have the Genius Act, which was passed on a bipartisan basis, and we know none of that happens on a regular basis here. So I'm curious, just to kind of start us off here, how pleased are you with the return on investment of the industry's political spending?
For those of you here this morning, I just remind you, I was in that seat, the interviewer. It's a whole lot easier to be the interviewer than the interviewee.
It is.
But look, I agree with what Novogratz said. I actually, during the 2024 election cycle, I tweeted out something to the effect that the Dems were going to be led off a cliff by Elizabeth Warren and Gary Gensler. And I think the Dems underestimated how passionate and how large the crypto community was, and I think it did impact votes. So when I don't think about it in the words of a return on investment. I think about it as we as a electorate should care about the United States leadership in innovative technologies, in AI, in the early days of the internet, and certainly that's true in blockchain and crypto. And the fact that it became partisan, I will be mind-boggled this on my deathbed. Like, this is a technology that can help people and be used to improve financial empowerment. We heard some great panelists today talking about this and why we would be opposed to a technology. Now, people can use technology in ways we may not like, but we should regulate that, not the technology itself. And I think that the community of the industry leaned in. Ripple was one of the key leaders alongside Andreessen Horowitz and Coinbase to support a super PAC that elevated and educated voters about these issues, and it certainly impacted some elections.
And of course, the SEC's years-long campaign against Ripple basically went up in smoke following the election. You talked about Gary Gensler just now. You've described the SEC under Gary Gensler as waging a war against the crypto industry.
But that's it's Elizabeth Warren's words, and I mean, literally, I'm not making those words up. They said, we're raising an army to attack crypto.
So what would you say to Gary Gensler if you were to bump into him on the street or downstairs?
I think actions speak louder than words.
So you wouldn't need to say anything?
Honestly, my honest view on this is I would not say, look, this is someone who I feel acted in bad faith.
Of course.
There wasn't an honest effort to engage and discuss. And I mean, you got to remember, this was when they sued us. I think many people would say, okay, you could see that maybe there's confusion about what is a.
So you guys, what I'll do is I'll let you guys, follow up and check that out on your own. But you can go to Ripple on X and go check out the rest of that interview. It's pretty good. I just want to play little clips of these things. Again, just an incredible, fantastic event. Well put together. Let me see. I need to find some other stuff here. And then I wanted to talk. So interestingly enough, being in New York City, the day of the election for the new mayor, I had asked a bunch of people, did an unofficial poll, right? So, and then Wednesday I talked to people and I would say, well, are you excited about the upcoming election? My cab driver that took me into the city, I had asked him, are you excited about the upcoming election? And he's like, kind of quiet. And I was like, okay, sometimes they don't like to talk. They just want to chill. They want to drive you. They want to get you to your destination. And right when we stopped, I said, just curious to hear your thoughts from, a New Yorker, like your perspective. And he said, well, what do you think about it? I said, I think it's weird that, that a socialist Democrat candidate would even, and somebody who's a Muslim that is into, globalizing the intifada. That's not like all Muslims are into that. It's just like that's particularly his flavor. Then the guy went nuts. He started speaking up and telling me about he's not a good Muslim. He's not a good guy. He doesn't believe him. He had a pretty heavy accent. He said, I voted for Trump. I mostly vote Democrat. I voted for Como. And even though Como is not the best guy, at least he knows how to run a state. He ran a state. He can run a big city. I had mentioned some of the stuff that went on during COVID. He agreed. He said it was the lesser of the two evils, and the other one was far more evil. He just was unloading, and I had asked him, like, so what do you think is going to happen? He says, I don't know. I think he might win, but the city's already expensive enough. This policies won't work here. It's going to drive business away. It's going to drive people away. And I said, why do you say he's not a good Muslim? He says he started citing some things. He's just not a good Muslim. I go, was it because he showed up in the gay club at 1 a.m. trying to do the DJ? He said it's the things he says and the way he conducts himself. That was kind of what he said. And I ended it with like, well, thanks you for sharing like how you feel about it. I always want to hear from New Yorkers, the people that are here, that live here and have to deal with it. So I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with me. And he said, oh, he goes, it was great to talk to you. I'm super happy that, that you're also like Trump and you're also a big supporter. And I really appreciate what you said about him. And then I said, he said, listen, give me your name. He goes, what's your phone number? He texted me. And he said, I'm going to come pick you up on, when are you leaving? Thursday. Okay, let me know. I'll be there. I'll pick you up. Don't worry. I got you. And I was like, cool. It's a guy I met, had a great conversation. And in closing, I said, what's your name? He said, Muhammad. I go, Muhammad, nice to meet you, man. I hope all the best for your election. But yeah, he was not happy and satisfied. Now, when I was heading back from the event Tuesday, I was walking back to my place, and I was staying at a buddy of mine has a phenomenal. When I say a phenomenal loft, looks like something out of Cribs, man. It was an amazing place to stay. Let's put it that way. And when I was heading back, I stopped in for a slice, and I saw the girl Tuesday night that had the sticker. I voted. I'm like, oh, you voted for? I ordered a slice, and I said, oh, I see you voted today. Just curious, like. Are you excited about the new Mex mayor? She goes, yeah, I voted for Mamdani. I'm super excited. Yay. And I was like, okay, well, all I can tell you is I hope you get everything you asked for and even more. And I said, and I hope there's a few surprises in there. And she said, oh, me too. And I was like, I'm not going to get into an argument with somebody. So I was just curious. Now, my unofficial poll, out of the probably, I don't know, between 12 and 15 people that I talked to over the days, and people in passing, standing in the street, standing in a queue in a line, waiting for a coffee, New Yorkers, not people from out of town, wanted to get their take on it. There was only one person, it was that pizza girl. There was only one. And I talked to other women and I talked to other men, but they were older than probably that set. And what I later discovered was the 18 to 28-year-old women voted overwhelmingly. It was like 82 or 85% voted for Mamdani. The other stat that was interesting was if you looked at the people who were born in New York, the New York born and bred people, overwhelmingly Como won. Now, if you look at people foreign born that voted, it was overwhelmingly Mamdani. So you can just see that people that weren't even from New York or born in New York or outside of New York, maybe relocated there from some other country, overwhelmingly voted. But otherwise, if it had been, New Yorkers, people born and bred in New York, people that grew up there, it would have been Como that won. So I thought that was another interesting stat here that I learned about, which, interestingly enough, it is what it is. And Jeff and I were talking about it. He says, we're going to have a lot of great content to talk about for the next 4 years. I'm like, yeah, if it goes 4 years, that might be the case. But Jeff and I were like, he's like, yeah, we'll definitely have the content. So I thought this was pretty interesting here. You look on the left, you got a photo of he almost looks like, this guy almost looks like the way his hair is, the way, the look, the little bit of beard action there. He's got like some kind of a scarf on. Looks like some kind of a hipster you might see maybe in the village somewhere, kind of with it in today. And that's Joseph Stalin. He used to be a hip intellectual atheist, and he was a Democrat socialist. And he basically led protests against the rich and powerful. He rose to power promising equality and then took over private industry, leading to mass poverty and famine, killed 20 million of his own people. And of course, you got Mamdani on the other side. And I always worry about people that are always smiling way too much. Like somebody could be like, during the debate, Como was just hammering him. He's there with the big smile. Oh yeah, huh? Like these fake smiles and this fake bullshit that they put on. Like it's just like, how do you say you're full of shit without saying you're full of shit? That's what it looks like 24/7. But in a weird way, I've said it here. I believe that this is going to be great for New York because in order to feel pain, you got to feel a lot of pain. So when these people think they're getting free stuff, they're in for a big surprise. And now what's really funny to me is that when I think about what he's promising with the rent control and this and that, well, good luck with that. Now, supposedly, and again, I would say supposedly, I haven't done enough research, but I have seen a couple people mention that he's looking to buy this grocery store that had been closed down for 5 years that apparently his cousin owns. He wants to revive it and start giving away free food. Well, that was tried in some other U.S. cities. Doesn't work really well. And if you see how socialism works, the SNAP program, which is the supplemental nutritional program, when the government closes down, that doesn't work anymore. So you're like, that's how government socialist programs work. When the government wants to make them happen, they make them happen. And if you look at Venezuela and Cuba and other notable places where socialism, communism has been tried, they're always like, no, they didn't do it right. If we're doing it, it's always great for the top 1-2%. It's great, but then you're always looking over your back. There's always somebody looking to replace you, but you're the one that's going to keep the ruse up. It's because you're living the good life. So what eventually happens is it devolves very fast into something poor like this, the grocery stores, the free buses, the free this. Maybe tomorrow night I'll play a clip of a guy who goes out on the street. He's like, yeah, are we excited? You're like, we're excited. He always pretends to be one of them. And he says, are you paying your rent tomorrow? You're not paying rent anymore, right? And they're like, no, we're not paying rent. Mandami's mayor. So, it's a little bit extreme and funny, but he started screaming, globalize the infantata, globalize the. And the guy goes, well, what are you doing? He goes, I thought you were a Mamdani supporter. He goes, I am. He goes, well, that's what he said. He's like, he looks like a little bit like lost. So when you think about all the things that kind of go on and people and things that people say, it's it's fun to watch. So Jeff's right. We will have a lot of content. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm shocked at all the people that are mostly young people. When you don't really study. They say that you only really know the past 2 generations of people that are still around, right? So you might know your parents, you might know your grandparents. If you're younger, you only know maybe the past 40 years. Maybe you heard of World War II, but you don't know anything about World War I. You don't really know much about any other wars or conflicts, but you kind of only know. And then if you're indoctrinated in one of these universities, you know even less. So now you guys may have heard that Nancy Pelosi is in fact retiring. She's not running again. So she's out at 85 years old. I'm not surprised by that. I expect a lot of people to not continue to run. But let's take a look at this. Now, when you think about Nancy Pelosi, you're like, okay, I'm wondering who's going to step up because it's a Democrat area. It doesn't matter who the Republican is. It could be someone like a well-known movie star that people like. It could be any actor, actress that would run but not as a Republican, right? Almost anybody can win. Well, you almost kind of wish it was one of those celebrities or maybe someone would give their try at a Senate seat. But look at this here. Now, this is funny because Bad Hombre put out, just so we're clear, the 2 individuals vying for Pelosi's seat are a pedophile who enjoys getting urinated on by strangers in kiddie pools and in public, known for lowering the age of consent for boys in California, and an Indian socialist, Sakhi Chakrabarti, AOC's former campaign manager. And there you go. One guy's holding up the Don't Tell Mom or Dad book, and these are the 2. So James Woods, who's one of my favorites to follow, he says, please, this cannot be true, Grok. Tell me what the facts actually are. Well, Grok chimed in and said, Nancy Pelosi announced she won't re-seek election in California's 11th district, opening the seat to candidates like State Senator Scott Wiener and Saket Chakrabarti. Wiener authored SB 145, which critics say weakens sex offender registration requirements for same-sex acts with 14 to 17-year-olds. You guys remember they passed that a couple years ago, compared to opposite-sex ones, and he praised the Folsom Street Fair featuring public urination and kiddie pools. Chakrabarti, of Indian descent and AOC's ex-chief of staff, I said campaign manager with chief of staff, aligns with progressive socialist policies. The original post description holds up under scrutiny. So there you have it. That's who's going to be. So you can see what happens in the Democrat Party. It's constantly devolving into this mess that it is. Now, what a lot of people have said is like, well, you know, the Republicans aren't doing the right thing. They're not paying attention because we lost in New Jersey, lost in Virginia for the governor's race, lost. But that weird looking dude out in Minneapolis, that mayor, the one that says it looks like one of the pirates from the Tom Hanks movie, he didn't get elected. So, well, there's one, right? But you're talking about blue states. You're talking about states that went blue. Also, the candidate in Virginia, Winsome Sears, which I liked a lot, was not a fan of Trump. She was not endorsed by Trump. The New Jersey candidate was endorsed at the last minute when it didn't mean anything. I think that maybe Trump wanted to see how that would go, but technically wasn't even endorsed by Trump. So you've got all this panic going on. You have all this division on the right saying, oh, we blew it. We're not going to win. The midterms are going to be a disgrace. I don't see it that way. Is the economy turned around as quick as people would have wanted? No, but you're not going to take 4 years of damage and then turn it around in 9 months. It's not going to happen. Although inflation's down, yeah, a lot of price and maybe the gasoline's down. It takes a while to turn it around. It's probably going to take another 6-8 months before it gets humming again. And also, too, get a new Fed chair in there to be able to. The new Fed chair will come in May. So you're looking about 6-7 months out for interest rates to drop a little bit to sort of get the economy humming again. It's not going to happen overnight. Although there's a lot of great policies. A lot of people are like, Trump is not. He's all pro-Israel. Doesn't care about the U.S. Trump secured over $6 trillion in new investment capital for here, right in the United States, which creates jobs, creates industry, and he's bringing that in. I'm like, you guys are nuts. What about drill, baby, drill? Well, my gasoline's dropped about $1 a gallon, and I was comparing that to people in the UK that's saying they're paying about £1.25 or £1.40, maybe £1.50 per liter, which the equivalent I pay here in the US is 50 pence per liter. And so if you look at that, and then somebody, one of my buddies from the UK, he said, no, £1.50 is like is not enough. It's actually more than that. It depends if you go to those crappy gas station, like the Walmarts of the world, those type of ones that have garbage gas, or if you want, if you're getting a higher octane, like if you're getting 95, 98, they also have or 95 and they have a 99 octane. This guy drives high performance cars, so he's not getting he's not going to the gas stations. He says, I pay a lot more. I pay like $2.40, $2.30 a liter, £2.30 a liter. So there's that one as well. So I don't subscribe to that. Look, these were deep blue states. And you could say Virginia might be purple, sure, because they're coming off of a Republican governor. But you got to remember when you have, depending on who the president is, and not again, Trump, didn't really endorse candidates. He didn't campaign for any of these candidates. He didn't really. I didn't see like it was going to turn out really any different. I hope for the best, but I didn't expect New Jersey or Virginia. You got to remember the people live in Virginia, all the people from DC, right? They live in Virginia because it's close by. So you have a lot of the DC folks living there. So there's going to be a lot of that as well. So let's see what else you have. It's about time. There's someone else younger that had the position. Yeah, but hopefully somebody that. It just seems like with New York, you thought like, well, it was such. I remember going there in the late '80s, and when David Dinkins was the mayor there, and I remember going to Times Square, and Times Square was full of porn theaters, and there were needles on the ground, It was seedy, dark. It was disgusting. It smelled. There was smelled of urine. I mean, it's like San Francisco. The city devolved. And then when Giuliani came on board, it really just sort of like picked up. He cleaned everything up, got rid of the homeless, opened up shelters, whatever. It cleaned up again, but you're starting to see it devolve again. You got a mayor that openly said he wants to defund the police, wants to do all this stuff, and then said, "Oh, I didn't say that. I didn't mean that." Well, the day after the election, you had something like 60 police officers take early retirement. They wanted out. You saw the fire chief resign the day after the election. So there's going to be a mass exodus as well. Who wants to work for someone like that? You remember, the last mayor before Adams, there was a big ceremony. All the police turned their back on him. So you're not going to see a lot of people. These cops have a tough enough job alone. Now they're going to be even hated more, and they're going to probably be out of a job. They're going to defund the police. Crime that he wants to take. Same thing they did in San Francisco, where, anything under $1,000 or $2,000, the police aren't going to bother for that. So now you're going to basically hamstring the police. You're going to have everything locked up in shops again, where you can't go in there and buy stuff. I had to go in there and buy some allergy medication, and of course, I had to find somebody to get me the allergy medication because it's all locked up in the stores. Some stuff you can buy, but it's amazing, like deodorants and stuff like that. This is New York City. This is what it's devolved into, right? It's pretty sad. More monkey business. Nancy's chair goes to the highest bidder. That is probably true. Also, Trump didn't say anything about drill baby drill. He said kill baby kill. No. That's what you're talking about there. Yeah, Davey X said I live in New York City and I voted Sliwa. And Dom D's, yeah, I got you. I hear you. A lot of people did. They were calling for Sliwa to drop out. Why would he drop out? He won his primary. Whether you like the guy or not. Again, no fan of Trump. Now, if you had somebody, this was not the cycle for somebody, a good, solid Republican to run. But after this cycle, this is like you get a David Dinkins, destroys the city. People get tired of it, wakes the city up. Unless you feel some extreme pain, nothing's going to change. So you're not going to have anything that's going to be anything different. So when you have a little bit of pain and they don't get the free stuff they want, and mass exodus, loss in the tax base. I mean, when you openly say that you want to tax the white rich neighborhoods, that's probably not a good way to lead. It's probably not a good sort of way to sort of lead off. And realtor friends of mine are saying that especially up in Palm Beach, down in Broward, they're getting lots of calls for people wanting to look for a place to live. It's going to be a huge exodus, like what happened with the pandemic. You're going to see a lot of people moving to the Carolinas from New York, moving all over the place. I think Florida will probably be a very popular place, but you're going to see business leave. A lot of businesses want to pay more taxes. Yeah, they want a tax break, right? So why would they? And not only that, but if you think about what businesses have to pay a premium for New York City, it's a lot higher. And if you ever look at it, like sometimes they'll post these jobs and they'll put them by region. If you live in this region, this is the salary. But if you live in this region, which happens to be New York City, it's boosted up maybe 25, 30%. It's a lot higher because the cost of living's high there. And so what everyone's been complaining about to me was that, hey, it's already bad enough there. There's already enough problems up there. And now one of the things Mandami came out and said that if these tenants or the landlords don't do certain things for the tenants, don't bring their buildings up, that that he's going to seize the buildings. Okay, well that's what socialists do, right? They want to, communists do that. They want to go ahead and seal industry. What happened in Venezuela? You guys will have free gas, free petrol the rest of your lives. You'll have this and that. You'll get food. Well, what ended up happening? The currency was worth nothing. It was dumped on the side of the road. It was blowing down streets, the currency. It was useless. It was meaningless. You saw some people were lucky enough to get into Bitcoin. But what happened to industry there? It was taken over by the government. Oh, you have this, you've had this in your family for 3 generations. Great. Now the state owns it. Good luck. And now you're talking about somebody that's talking. So all this stuff was out there. If you did a little bit of research, but people, listen, the New Yorkers aren't that bright in general. They don't, everything's emotional based. And really, it was the women that elected, responsible for electing Mamdani overwhelmingly, and also people that weren't born in New York with Mamdani. So there you go. It's going to be content, man. It'll be like the new content. We'll probably have stuff to always chat about. But the other thing, he wants to spend $200 million to prevent ICE from going in there. He wants to lock up ICE. All right, so you don't have to be a genius to understand that federal law trumps any, and excuse the pun there, but will trump any local laws. So ICE is the law of the land. You are protecting the border. If people are illegal, they have the right to go in and go ahead and deport people. So I don't think he'll stand by that. I think he's a lot of hot air. I think he's a very small man when it comes to talking big, but not backing it up. Because if he does, he'll go to jail. And, it's simple as that. If you're going to obstruct ICE, I thought there's been a lot of restraint. There's a lot of these politicians. There's a lot of governors that have been yapping their mouth about how they're going to prevent ICE from taking people. It's a lot of chatter and talk. They don't really actually do anything. They're not actually preventing them. They're not actually getting in the way of that. But if they do, there'll be consequences. Look, this is a federal law, so that's how it works. So anyway, I'll tell you this in closing today, guys. It went by pretty fast. I got to get to a meeting, but I wanted to just say that I really appreciate you guys. XRP Plumbing, thank you for that support. I really appreciate that. Thank you, man. Always been really positive, a great supporter here. Here we go. Great concept, Chip. Combi Librata, a valuable content generators for us to gain and teach about. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it's going to go. We really don't have much of a choice. But again, sometimes you have to oversteer. It was funny when Obama came into power, people were so mad, angry, and he got real. I was at a rally where Trump was toying with running against Obama in his second term, decided to hold off. But I had mentioned, I said, Jimmy Carter gave us Reagan. Obama is going to give us another Reagan. And people laughed at me. They're like, they laughed at me. Well, it turns out I was right because we got Trump, right? I said, because if you oversteer too much and if you piss people too much, you're going to have a counter. And the counterbalance is going to be the opposite direction, going to get a good conservative in there. So when Trump came on the scene, now when you get somebody, David Dinkins was a horrible mayor. The city was in disrepair. You got someone like a Giuliani, right? So this whole process of having this Mamdani, he's kind of a goof even. The guy's a trust fund kid. His parents own millions of dollars. He's pretending like he's never even held a job. He's a council member. This guy's a loser, right? He's a typical A loser. And it'll be fun to watch him just make mistake after mistake. But sometimes that's what you need to wake up the populace. You need people in there to understand, well, geez, I didn't get my free stuff. What about the free grocery stores? They tried that. We're out in Colorado. That place shut down. They couldn't keep the shelves stocked. This is what happens. I mean, just be a student of history to understand how it goes. It may initially look successful. You're gonna get a free bus. The only way you can do any of this stuff is you got to raise the taxes. You want more? Yeah, the people who live in New York are paying enough tax. They've got their county tax, which is like anywhere between 9 and 11%. You've got your state tax. You've got give you an example of Florida. There is no federal income. I mean, there's federal income tax, but there's no state income tax, so you don't get taxed. So people that are paying 7-8% in state tax can take the same job, work remote, and all of a sudden they got an 8% increase because they're not having to pay that every year. So there's a trade-off. I don't know. DeSantis I don't know if he was joking or goofing, but he was saying he was going to put a tariff on people from New York City relocating. I don't know how he does that, but I thought it was funny anyway. I think he's just goofing on it. But it'll be interesting to see how that sort of Reaganomics. There you go, Reaganomics. And I've had this debate with a lot of people saying that I was a big fan of Reagan. He was the very first president that I had a chance to vote for when I was old enough. And I will say this about Reagan, that he had a lot of great intentions also. I look at Trump 2.0, it's kind of an interesting thing that it's much better that Trump took a 4-year sit out, because I don't think he would have been as strong as Trump 2.0. His first administration, a lot of mistakes were made. All presidents make mistakes, trusted the wrong people, had a lot of rhinos in there. And look what he's done. He's got people like Tulsi Gabbard. He's got people like Pam Bondi. He's got, people like RFK Jr. former Democrats, someone like an Elon Musk, another former Democrat, Trump, former Democrat, all these former Democrats that are kicking ass only because sitting out for 4 years, but people had to go through the pain. I see the same thing's going on in the UK with Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer is a tool. He's a wank. He's a jerk, but you need someone like him to usher in someone like a Nigel Farage or a Ben Habib. I like a Ben Habib. I think he's way more conservative than Nigel Farage. But that's just me coming from my position. But I've seen Nigel move a little bit further, but he's a little bit like a Trump Jr. in some of the regard, wants to do a lot of deportations and this and that. It's a whole different form of government with parliamentary in the UK. So you got to go through some pain. If you live in the UK and you got Keir Starmer, he's your Joe Biden, right? So people want to say like, well, geez, I didn't like that at all. The difference, I think, a big difference in the UK versus the US is the Tories, we would call them Democrats here, and Labour, we'd call them leftist Democrats, right? They're even further to the left. But the Tories do not measure up to be conservative on any measure compared to what we look at here in the United States. So the Tories were horrible over there, so-called conservatives, just absolutely a train wreck over there. So anyway, that's it. Cheaper to travel the world than stay in one place. We got a lot of people in this case. Okay, so yeah, one guy in America didn't pay his $5,000 water bill and they want to take his house now. Yeah, it's America's a kleptocracy. Yeah, it really seems to be that way. Belgium's out. Mama Lacey, good to see you again. Thank you for coming in here. Hope you subscribed over there on YouTube. You're probably not there. Trump and Reagan, both actors. Yeah, but Reagan, they were both actors, but Trump also, I don't know if Trump's an actor. He's a business guy, but Reagan was phenomenal. Reagan was an actor. I don't know. I watched some of his movies. I didn't think he was a particularly good actor. I thought he was a much better president, and he was a great governor. It's hard to believe, guys, now that Reagan was a 2-term governor in California, right? You got someone like Gavin Newsom there. It's unbelievable. And that guy thinks he's going to be president. I don't know. But you can see when I see AOC hanging out with Mamdani, you can see that those two are probably going to try to make a run for president and VP. I say bring it on, man. They never win in the arena of ideas. They bitch a lot about stuff, but they don't have any new ideas. The same old tired playbook of things that don't work. So you can criticize Trump all you want with the tariffs. Tariffs are raising a lot of money. His ultimate goal was to eliminate federal income tax for people making $150,000 or less. That's how the government was funded back before 2013 and the Fed came on the scene. If you think about it like that, yeah, it's a pretty big deal. And I think like, hey, not everything you're going to try is going to work, but you give it a shot. Who's tried tariffs since 1913? Who's talking about the Federal Reserve getting audited? Who's talking about the Fed being absorbed into Treasury? Who's talking about, like, these conversations weren't really happening before. So I at least applaud that there's new ideas. You got to try some new stuff to see if it's going to get some traction or not. But if you sit around and do the same old thing, get the same old garbage you always got, right? So you got to be willing to at least try it. So my money business says I've got one kidney in a pawn shop and one long cash generator. Okay. All right. Boom. Term limits 100%. 100% need term limits. Like that term limit conversation needs to come up. That would be a huge win. It would be 2 terms in the Senate. That means Warren would have been out. And I think it's 4 terms in the House, which is equivalent of the same period of time, 8 years. The House you run every 2 years. The Senate is every 6 years. So, well, close. You'd be 10 years, but I think 4 in the House would be enough. 2 in the Senate. So you got 12 years and 10 years is how that would work. Or 8 years, I'm sorry. Math's not so good. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, 8. And that's it. That's all the time I have, guys. We will see you soon. Jeff is going to be back here tomorrow. Again, he had he has a work thing going on today. I know he's in Miami, but he's got something that he had to do super early. Wasn't able to make the show. And he will be back tomorrow evening. But that's all we got, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for the support, XRP Plumber. Much love to you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. See you on the next one. Chip out.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.